There you have it, folks. Inexplicably, unsold inventory, the percentage of unsold homes, which has been skyrocketing. We've been seeing it year after year in Florida, growing in an ongoing basis, is all of a sudden plummeting. And it begs the question, because I've been getting an awful lot lately, Jared, is there a massive influx in people coming to the Orlando market now that there's these regime changes in the northern states? Don't know, but there's some crazy things going on in the Florida market right now. What in the world is in store in the housing market? My friends, you've been sitting on the sideline for 2 or 3 years. You've been waiting for that day that just maybe you can afford to get in the housing market. Or maybe you've been seeing all this mixed bag of news that's going on right now. The prolonged government shutdown, potential for the Federal Reserve to keep cutting rates. Maybe, just maybe, the interest rate climate will get to a place where you can get into the housing market. Maybe you're planning to sell a house next year, or you're an investor trying to keep on the winds of change. We're going to do a deep dive. I'm going to go through old school, show you some of the macro data, what's going on in the foreclosure market, what's going on in the mortgage data, what's going on in interest rates, what can we expect in 2026, where are we at right now across Orlando with the Central Florida housing market. You're going to understand exactly where things are. So if that's for you, dive down below, give me a thumbs up. Let's get into the update. For the first story, let's go over to Wolf Street. Let's take a look at how many Americans are pulling out home equity lines of credit. Remember the old house ATM? You go to your equity, you start cashing it out in order to pay the bills. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at serious loan delinquency. We're going to take a look at foreclosures. The simple update is that home equity lines of credit are making a comeback. You can see this is the bottom right down here during the pandemic era when there was a lot of cash in the marketplace coming from the government. Then all of a sudden you can kind of see it swinging back. This area where we're at right now, we are up 33% since 2021. So this run up you see in the last couple of years represents about $422 billion. You can see that this is relative right around here to where we were in 2019. And the concern of this is that if homeowners are tapping their equity again, that and maybe this is obviously a cheaper alternative than using credit cards. And these are second liens. These are actually attached to the property. So if these ever go delinquent, these could result in someone losing their home. But the other thing that you need to know right here in the article is that despite a 33% surge, HELOC balances are themselves low. The HELOC, the lines of credit, many of them are unused. Homeowners are just using them as a standby source of funding. The next chart we want to see is the debt to income ratio. So how much disposable income does the average American have? You can see we're charting on the far right edge of this graph down by the blue line that the disposable income ratio in the third quarter is 58.6%, just a hair higher than the second quarter, which has been the lowest on record, except for the Four Corners during the pandemic when, again, there was lots of helicopter money and everybody had cash in the bank. And Wolf goes to point out that it's glaringly obvious what caused the last financial collapse is that you had the housing debt for Americans go to 90% of their income back in 2008. I have to admit, however, that if you look even back here to 2023, you can see it's on a slow decline even now in the face of really inflation on everything is still not abated, not in relation to most Americans' incomes. To me, the data, and again, I know he's pulling this from the New York Fed, so this is the reliable data feed. It's just I don't know, it's just an interesting chart for me to see. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we're going to talk about the rate of mortgages and home equity lines of credit that are seriously delinquent. That is 90 days or more. You can see you had this huge spike in 2008, which represented about 10% of all mortgages were actually in default at that time or seriously delinquent 90 days or more. You can see that over here on the far right, that serious delinquencies are near record lows. Less than 1% of all mortgages are 90 days plus late. Same with HELOCs. This is why people call me from time to time. They say, hey, Jared, I want you to find me a foreclosure. I'm like, I want you to find me a foreclosure because there just aren't many being processed right now. Last chart I want to show you is total households, total consumers. They're actually in foreclosure in thousands, okay? So down here, you are around 50,000 consumers. It's up a little bit, but it is far below the normal running average. You go back 15, 20 years, and we are still at the very, very bottom of what we trended in that area. Next big story recently, we just had this come out last month. Median monthly housing prices post biggest decline in nearly a year. It's getting lower and lower for buyers. The cost to own a home is dropping. I know what you're saying. Go in the comments and tell me if it's dropped low enough. Here we go. The median U.S. monthly housing payment is $2,530 during the 4 weeks ending October 26. This is going to be down 1.4%. And why? Because the mortgage rates are coming down. Now, they are back up a little bit after this report, but it said 6.19% is what's absolutely lowering the cost of housing. I love the subheadline, by the way. It says, Redfin reports many would-be buyers are still spooked by rising sale prices and economic news, but some are creeping off the sidelines. So we're going to see if that's actually holding. But let me know in the comments, is this really going to work? And I got to tell you too, from where I'm coming from, you don't need just to lure buyers. You have to get sellers with 3.5% and 4% and maybe 2.75%. You got to get those people in the market as well. And they're the ones that are saying psychologically, I can't handle even 6.19%. And that ultimately is not really going to advance us as far as we need to go. Where will that rate be? 5.5%? That brings everybody together. Sellers get back in the game and decide to do business with buyers again. It's a lot of market that's just not moving. We'll see more of that in a second as we get in the housing update. Before we jump off of looking at this situation with interest rates and how active buyers are right now, because this is important. Are buyers in the game? Or are they leaving the game? Look at this. This is the most recent data from the Mortgage Bankers Association. You have refinances up 151% over the same week a year ago. They're down 3% against last week. This is refinances, okay? It's people going in. Refinance, by the way, look at this further down, represents 57% of all purchase applications. Almost 60% of all the applications lenders are getting right now are for people who have a current rate higher than 6.19 apparently, or looking to refinance for some other reason. 57% of all that is refis. Refis typically are only around 1/3, not 60%. So that's elevated. But even then, look at this. The unadjusted purchase price index is 26% higher than the same week a year ago. So the amount of people going in and getting purchase applications to try and potentially buy a home is actually elevated pretty good over prior year. And this has been this way for a few weeks now. You've had every single week, just with these interest rates coming down a little bit more, the Fed announcements, all these kinds of things. Next top story, we're finding out that the share of new construction homes, this big glut of brand new, completely finished homes, is falling. The amount of them that you can purchase. Listen to this. Redfin reports 27% of for sale homes are newly built, which represents the lowest share of these types of properties in 4 years. If you were watching the news, the first half of this year, there was the largest number of standing inventory, new construction. This was the narrative. I'm not saying that it was false. I'm saying you would have a lot of folks on the internet, particularly on YouTube, showing these charts of how many homes were finished and sitting, and that this was a detrimental thing. Well, we've been seeing some interesting things. I've been reporting to you since the end of summer how the national level and even at the Florida level, you're seeing active supply falling, uncharacteristically so for the time of year. It's dropping at a level that we haven't been seeing. It's been the opposite in the South. The narrative in the South has been how much supply we have over the year prior. There's been a lot of supply sitting around. You add to that, we've also had the same narrative about new construction. But what is happening, according to this article, is that we are seeing housing starts actually starting to drop. So we're down 6%. Completions of homes are now starting to drop as a result. So they're filing less permits, which means they're going to finish less homes. And ultimately, overall, you're going to see less inventory out there. And I'm not trying to paint the narrative. This isn't a FOMO presentation, right? Everybody's going to jump in the comments and say, oh, he's going to present that we're going to have a massive shortfall of houses. Listen, everybody has a bias. I'm not trying to present a bias. I'm going to keep showing you the data. You decide for yourself. I'm not going to bring a bias. But plenty of people call me and say, automatically on the phone, they'll say to me, Jared, as we know, you know what I'm saying? They'll state it as fact. The housing market in Orlando is falling off a cliff or something. And I'm going, you got the wrong market. Can I send you some data? But data shows that the volume that builders have is dwindling in standing inventory. Again, when you see all the insane rate packages and cash incentives and closing cost money, rate buy down, all that stuff happens on the stuff the builder really wants to sell. So are we just possibly going to see a little less competition from the new construction side going into 2026? I don't know. The data suggests it might be the case. Less new construction is good news for resale homeowners because competing with a new home builder that can offer all those kinds of things is very difficult, especially if you're somewhere in Orlando where there is a lot of new construction competition like the Southeast, You got North Polk County, you have Osceola County, you have the Northwest up in Apopka. Those areas where homeowners are competing with builders that are offering a lot on nearly finished or fully completed, that makes it very tough for the resale market. That looks like it might be dwindling for now. We'll see what happens. Hey, it's me interrupting myself. Are you selling or buying? One call, that's all you need, and put nearly 4,000 home sales and 23 years of experience to work for you.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
Next top story, recent. Only 2.8% of all homes will turn over in the year 2025. The lowest amount of homes transferred, 28 out of every 1,000. So it's the percentage of actual homes changing hands. This is the lowest in 3 decades. Ice cold. The reality, 70% of homeowners still have below 5% on their interest rate, and they're not giving them up for such a high rate. I've been saying this before. The article, by the way, points out the marketplaces that bucked the trend. Can you guess what they were? Number 1, Virginia Beach. West Palm Beach was number 2, and Tampa was number 3. The absolute lowest to turnover in the US, can you guess what they were? 2 of them, New York and Los Angeles. Is that changing? Some people think New York might be changing soon. Somebody tell me in the comments if that's about to change for New York. New York's going to start seeing some late-breaking turnover. All right, team. Trump administration has waged war on high housing payments. Trump actually just put a post out advocating, putting at least on the table, a 50-year mortgage. So extending the terms from 30 years to 50 years. Obviously, you run the debt out longer and you lower the payment. I don't know. Here's the catch, right? A 50-year mortgage is actually not legal, right? So in Congress, the Dodd-Frank Act, which I think passed around 15 years ago or so, caps qualified mortgages at 30 years. So for mortgages to actually be done at scale, this has to be put through by legislation, right? We obviously know how great our government's working right now. I don't like it at all. I'm curious what you think. Is this a smart solution or is it dangerous? Okay. I don't like it just because I think it's crazy. I think it's a wild take to be like, we're going to put people under debt like that long, right? When I looked at the numbers, a $400,000 loan at 6.5%, the 30-year payment is $2,038. If you go to a 50-year term, it goes from there, you save approximately $200. So it goes to $1,822 a month. When you amortize that out, I bet the people are paying for the house 3 times over. Like, if anything, I would love for us to put a higher constraint on. It would make the market tough. It would, I'd be selling fewer homes if we were at 20-year mortgages. Mortgages are a necessary evil for me. Again, there's certain things that Trump's came out with I liked. I thought was a good idea. Not a big fan of this. And honestly, I don't think this is going to fly anyways. I don't think Congress is working together on much of anything, as we can see by the shutdown. I certainly don't think they're coming to agreement on this. Maybe I'm wrong. So enlighten me in the comments. I want to hear from you. All right, team, let's jump into the data. So take a look at this. This is Redfin's year-over-year data. We're going to focus on this chart on the top side just so you don't get confused. This right here is basically the blue line is 2025. The orange line is 2024. Gives us a good overlay. Now, what you're looking at on the chart right here, you can see the blue line on the chart we're looking at, this is new listings. This is how engaged the sellers are in the marketplace in 2025. You can see, if you've been following me all year, we watched the year start off with a bang. This number right here in early January represented a big move of sellers bringing inventory into the market. And everybody was like, what is going to happen this year? Are we going to see a glut of inventory? And we didn't, because look at this, multi-year lows. And that persisted. There were 4-year lows through the fall. And then that precipitated what we had happen next. Next chart I'm showing you on screen, active unsold homes. This is the number one metric everybody's watching with the health of the market, right? You don't want to see unsold homes stack up and have lots and lots of homes for sale that are sitting around. Buyers can take their pick and negotiate the prices down. Look what is happening. Now, again, I called this out a month ago. I said, you know what? There is an uncharacteristic fall off in unsold supply, the actual supply chain, the actual amount of homes. You got this earlier in the segment when I was talking about new construction. The amount of standing inventory supply is dropping because there's less homes for sale. Buyers are going to pick new homes if there's even one there, because the inventory of resale is dropping. And this is a fascinating phenomenon. Look, this was last year. You see how it goes all the way into November before it tapers? I'm going to show you another chart. This is actually from the Realtors Board. This is active inventory. Look what happens every year. We have a run up of inventory. This, by the way, my friends, is November of 23. Look what happens in December. Boom, it drops. Last year, 24, run up of inventory. Unsold homes climbs all the way to the end. November, boom. Why does it drop in December? People pull off for the holidays. People take a break. People decide not to list. Two things are happening at once. There's less people driving homes in the market that time of year. There's even sometimes people pulling them back and the inventory drops. I could not believe this because we saw back in July. This is such an uncharacteristic trend that in July, you actually start to have a pullback of homes. And this is important for you to watch because people call me all the time. Jared, there's all kinds of homes sitting around in Central Florida, isn't there? There's all kinds of inventory sitting. I'm like, no, in fact, there's not. And we're seeing that two things are taking place. Builders, as I told you earlier, are starting fewer homes. They're going back to the thing that they did between 2010 and 2020. You remember after the GFC, we had 2008 turmoil on the market. Builders really never restarted the machine all the way to 2020. When the pandemic hit, there was a massive exuberance to build all things, and that seems to be tapering. So the amount of supply that's being built into the market, again, they're not massive changes. There's still a lot of building and construction going on in the South. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of standing supply and the amount of resale homes right now is tightening significantly. Now, you would say, Jared, is this resulting in chaos in the market? Are the buyers back to multiple offers? Is down market time it takes to sell, collapsing for home sellers? No, it's not. And there's a phenomenon I'm going to share with you in a second to help you understand, because that's the interesting thing, is that there are fewer sellers, there are fewer buyers at times. There is a late breaking interest from buyers as interest rates start to dip, go and apply for a loan. But I'm going to tell you, it's fascinating in the Orlando marketplace. If you look at price point segments, I went and looked at 6 to 800,000, 900 to 1.2 million, 1.2 million on up. All of the categories above the median price, the amount of available supply is dropping. And the lower price points, 250, 350, 4, they're actually not dropping as much, okay? So take from that insight what you will. If you got some economists watching this, explain what is happening when you have more of a supply disappearance at the higher price points, because that's what's taking place right now. It is now also trending in the lower price points as well, but it's a little bit behind. It's just tipping down where even the lower price points, you cannot find homes for sale. Take a look at this chart real quick. This is the sale inventory growth year over year. This is what I'm telling you, that back here, even actually starting in April, there was a consistent drop off of how many homes were on the market against prior year. It's getting closer and closer to the zero line, okay? Now, you are right now sitting at the lowest percentage of year over year inventory growth of unsold homes that we've seen. You have to go back here like 2 years, 2.5 years, February, early 2023, to find a time frame when you're as low year over year as we are now. And that's a good thing. You don't want to see constant increase in inventory year over year, but that is the trend. You have to pay attention to it. If it continues on, you are going to be back in a tight supply chain as we come into the first quarter of 2026 buying season, okay? Now, we have to see how that plays out because we are in a dropping interest rate environment, okay? If the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, keeps coming out and forecasting further rate cut announcements, every time he comes and does those announcements, it gets priced into the bond market and these interest rates come down. They don't come down the moment he drops the rate. When you come out and see the announcement and you look at the mortgage rate has already dropped by that moment, okay? That's just how it works. All right, my friends, something that everybody's watching, if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, what in the world is going on with home price in Orlando? You have to be careful with this because there's people reporting data. I'm not going to mention names, but there's a person with a very big channel who likes to talk about data, and he does not actually pull the sale price, the average or the median. There's people using what's called home price indexes. They're not actual rates of change of price. And they'll go, look, the such and such index shows a price fall. That is not the change of, that's actual market data. And listen, team, I'm not here to throw shade on any other YouTubers. I actually respect that particular YouTuber I'm referencing a great deal. But they pull up consistently, but the Zillow Home Value Index doesn't look like the actual data. Number one. Number two, nobody knows how the data is actually even formulated. If you go online, and I've looked, because I'm trying to understand where in the world are you getting this data and how come it doesn't look like anything that's actual, what we're seeing produced in the market. That's because there's a proprietary formula that nobody knows about. That's okay. But I'm just saying, if you look at this chart, it's sitting here right on screen. Look what you see. You see a flat chart for like 2.5 years. That's been the data. Now look at below, September 2025. If you see the running month over month chart, what do you notice? Last month, it was up 1.1% over year prior. The month before that was like 0.5%. Then it's down 0.9%. Then it's down 0.2%. Then it's even. All year long, 2025 is weaving above and below 2024, almost like a helix, okay? In fact, look at September 2025 at the top of the chart. It's identical to October 2024 at the bottom of the charts, $440,000 for the median sale price in Orlando Metro. That's just the way it is. And honestly, what do we think is going to happen if we're going into 2026 facing maybe mid 5% interest rate for the 30-year fixed if we continue on a path of cutting interest rates? And obviously, we already see where inventory is going. Who knows? I would just say the argument is more clear to me of maybe a more stable market. But at the same time, you cannot look at this price chart sitting on your screen and be like, okay, this is going down, baby. This is a crash. Clearly, the graph shows stability, a stable market. Isn't growing, isn't dropping. Which one do we really want? I mean, do we feel more comfortable and confident buying into a marketplace where it never flattens out or stabilizes? I mean, it is what it is. I know everybody wants to feel like a 2008's being reborn, but you got years. Let me show you one last thing that I think you're really going to find helpful, depending on where you are in Orlando. This is the percentage of change for your zip code, okay? So if you're watching this and you're in Winter Springs, or you're near Waterford Lakes, or you're near Winter Garden, right here, the more red your zip code is, the higher the mix of year-over-year inventory is, meaning your zip code, if it's red on this map, is up significantly over prior year and trending much higher than the rest of the Orlando marketplace. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. So if you come out here to the east, let's take Waterford Lakes, for instance. 32828, dead even, zero growth in the amount of listings. 32827, Lake Nona, is 5%, practically balanced in the amount of listings it has against last year. Look at St. Cloud against the lake, negative 7.5% against last year. Out west, Claremont to the north is 21% over last year. So that zip code in 711 is over-indexing the metro area. The metro area is up 10%. And 10%, as I showed you on the graph, is a plumbing. We have been putting up much bigger year-over-year unsold inventory growth, meaning the net leftover amount of sale that is there based on how much is still coming and buyers are not moving, that number, that margin of growth over prior year is dwindling. Winter Garden 787 is 17% up. Windermere plus 3%. Ocoee in 761 is down 4%. Sorrento is negative 12% to last year. Mount Dora is up 2.3. Winter Park 32789 is up 8%. The East Winter Park zip code in 792 is negative 5.1%. College Park in 32804 is plus 13%. Now the areas of highest supply, you have Metro West, Hiawassee, right up here against Universal, 32835 is up 51%. Dr. Phillips in 819 has 37%. Same with 836, also another Dr. Phillips zip code, includes Golden Oak. South Chase area off of OBT in the South, 32804 is 41% up on last year. Southeast Orlando in 32829 up 60%. And these would represent some of the highest year-over-year zip codes that would have a little bit more supply, possibly higher price cuts, possibly higher motivated sellers than really everywhere else in the marketplace. Now, a really great chart, one of my favorite charts for helping buyers and sellers understand the market, is what's called the median list price year over year. This is a measure of what sellers are bringing their homes for in the exact same market versus a year prior. Now, in a healthy market, or conceivably an appreciating market, you're asking a little more than what these similar homes in these similar areas were going for a year ago. When you see them go into the blue, where you see the people potentially reducing their asking prices against last year, to me, that signals the brokers and the sellers in a given area are looking around and thinking, I need to probably be a little bit modest and be a little bit conservative with my pricing approach. Their sentiment is things need to be priced very well in these more blue areas than they do in order to get out of the marketplace. Now, that's not an end all, but it is absolutely a fascinating indicator that shows you where the confidence markers are now. So let's take a look at this, what we would call the confidence chart in the market. Where is the confidence a little shaken? You can see through Winter Park, these are positive. You can see across the middle of Orlando in more popular areas like College Park, 18% above year prior. Winter Park, 789, 7% over year prior. 792, 13.9%. We showed you Waterford Lakes area, 32828. It's 2% over prior year. You'll remember there's really net even listing count in that zip code. We saw that down in St. Cloud, there was actually negative listing count to last year. There was maybe a glut of listings in the South that got cleared out, and now it's actually down. But look, sellers are still being a little bit conservative in how they're pricing homes in Osceola County, because that's what's happening. And I'm telling you, when I see these negatives, I see in real time my buyers get better deals in these kind of market environments. Sold a great house in St. Cloud recently. Shout out to Simon and his family. This is a good sign for buyers when you see listings being a little bit more careful in the market or very flat to last year. It means you have a little bit more negotiating power. You have a seller that's a little bit more sincere and ready to go. So you can kind of look through this map and see where you're making plans. You can actually have me pull this map in 2026 as you're getting ready to buy in Orlando. We can review it together and determine if any of these areas kind of overlap your lifestyle goals. Like Oviedo down 7.4%, Winter Springs down 1.3%. Look at Longwood, 32750, negative 13, 779, negative 19%. I mean, people in Longwood getting these houses on the market and ready to sell right. Going to the west side, you got Mount Dora, Sorrento. These areas are not really bumping up too much over last year, but they are positive 2% for Mount Dora. Apopka's up 2.1, Sorrento negative 0.3. You can see there was not an excessive amount of inventory against last year in these areas. Dropping down, Claremont 34711, negative 11.3. People in Claremont getting serious about selling the real estate there. Mineola in 715 is break even practically at 0.9% of change above last year. Winter Garden, Homeowners here, pricing 4.3 above last year. Southeast side of Claremont, 34714 going into Four Corners Disney. A lot of growth here for Wellness Way. This is 1.7 above last year. Kissimmee's Reunion area, the edge of Celebration, negative 7.2%. I can tell you if we could isolate Celebration, they are probably not pricing negative 7. This is probably more the short-term rental market, and you're finding values in this market. Just sold a really good house here, 150 to 200,000 below comps in the past 2 years. Okay, other resales of the exact same model, much different price depending on where it is. And by the way, I did not pull North Polk in the inventory chart. A second ago, you'll remember I had all these zip codes showing where supply is being moderated, not getting out of hand year over year. Unsold homes are dropping or getting even. Davenport, the same thing is happening, which is good welcome news for that area, because you had that area starting to see a little bit of a surge over the past 2.5, 3 years. It is definitely coming down more in line with what you're seeing in the rest of the Orlando market. I got something really cool to show you on this data charting in just a second. The percentage of the county that votes Republican or votes Democrat. I can select either one. I don't know if this is going to cause pandemonium in the comments, but I'm going to share with you the data here in a second, just for fun. I have several data tools that I pay for. This is one of them. Every once in a while, I log in and they add new things on the dashboard. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Let's show everybody that. So before I go there, okay, one last thing I want to share. I will have more time going into January to do data updates. That means city by city, zip code by zip code, county by county, something like that for all of you. So let me know in the comments which cities you want to see, preferably around the Orlando metro, and if there's any data points that you would like me to cover on each of these data videos. So there's a lot of things I did not get to. I could talk about price cuts percentages, which by the way, metro-wide are down. I could talk about how long it takes a home to go under contract. I could talk about how long it takes a home to sell. I could talk about the percentage of homes that sell over asking price. A lot of different things. I didn't cover everything. I obviously want to cover main narrative, main game changers, trends that are changing. So let me know what you think. By the way, let's pick one of the two. Vote Democrat, vote Republican. Which one are we going to try? It's an opposites thing, right? So I'm going to click vote Democrat, okay? So in this chart, since I've selected vote Democrat, in this chart, if you see anything in blue, that means the majority share of the voters in the county are voting Democrat. So for instance, Orange County is voting 46% Democrat. In Osceola County, 48%, so less than half. Polk County, 39%, significantly less than half. Lake County, 37%, significantly less than half. Seminole County, slightly less than half. Volusia, Marion, there you go. Interesting chart, right? I couldn't get this to load for zip codes. I thought, what if we could figure out where they live inside of the county? But you can't. You can't. And by the way, I could have easily clicked vote Republican. Here you go. Let's be fair to everybody. There you go. It just rearranged the data in a different direction. It looks the same. All right. That's it. Let me know what you think's happening in this marketplace in the comments. Engage. It will help the video. Just say hello. Say thanks for the data. Tell me I'm crazy. Whatever you want. Drop down below. Look forward to connecting with you there. Did I help you understand the marketplace better here in Orlando? And if I did, make me this promise that when you're ready to buy or sell in Florida, you'll remember this moment and give me the opportunity to earn your business. Even outside of Orlando, I can help you by connecting you with a trusted agent. I honestly do not make these videos for ad revenue. I make them to build a relationship with you before you need me. So please, if I've added value, do me a favor and commit right now to give me a chance when the time is right. And if you haven't done so already, do me a favor, drop down below, smash the thumbs up. It'd mean a lot to me and help the channel. Consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates on growth, housing market, and data news across the Orlando market.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
If you're in the Central Florida area and you're looking for a great church, I'd love for you to join me at the Grove Bible Chapel. Just visit joinmeatthegrove.com for full details.